I get the enormous, huge pleasure of speaking to this incredible man, Dave Bilbrough. And you've got to understand why I use words like that. You know, I celebrate your life, Dave, because you have impacted so many people, not just so many people in my life, in just the way you are. And I won't forget Pat. I know she's somewhere here watching on, but you guys have been so special. Now, Dave, for many people who may not know you, because they may know your songs, but they may not know you, tell us who Dave Bilbrough is.
Well, thanks. First of all, thank you for those very kind words, Noel.
Hey.
Very humbling and very kind. So I'm a songwriter, musician, worship leader, although when I first started, that term worship leader wasn't one that was part of the Christian vocabulary. It's one that's developed over the years.
Yeah.
But what it means is I count it a great privilege to travel and share songs, mostly my own songs, in a number of different situations, variety of different ways, to help release that sense of the presence of God, which is among us, but needs to be broken out in so many different ways.
Well, I know you do the unusual thing, because I remember going to a pub in East London, a pub, you know, a Pentecostal going to a pub. It just doesn't happen. I remember going to a pub, and here was Dave with his band set up, and you started to sing these songs that were like, wow, what a great evening we had with a glass of water and orange juice.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I mean, I'll tell you that we were upstairs in this pub playing away, and I had to go and visit the gents downstairs. And it was a big Victorian staircase.
Yeah, that's right.
To go down. And I saw this guy, the landlord, with a phone holding it up in the air. And I thought, what is happening here? Has he suddenly become a sort of half a Christian with one hand up in the air? And he finally put the phone to his ear, and he said, that's those Christians up there. They're having a whale of a time, much better than we are down here.
Wow.
Isn't that what it should be, Noel?
It should be. And you know, that was that. When I saw that, I went, only Dave could choose a venue like this and bring worship to the streets, well, to the pubs, you know. But Dave, you know, I want to know, when did this all start? Because
long time ago, Noel. Long time ago.
Hold it down. Not yesterday, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't come from any religious background, actually.
Wow.
But it was music that drew me in, the singer-songwriters of my generation. And upon finding Christ, I wanted to begin to express something of what I felt. So I picked up a guitar and started to play it. Went along to my local church, and, you know, there weren't many worship songs. It was all sort of hymns that I could feel the sentiment, but I couldn't relate to the terminology. So I began to write my own songs. And the first one was just a simple prayer called Abba Father.
Yeah.
Just came from my heart. I really just saw it as a simple prayer, and blow me down, before I knew it, it was being passed around all over the place and crossing all the denominational borders, because I guess that heart expression is really the bedrock of what our worship is.
Well, this is the profound thing about Abba Father. We used to sing that in our church.
Oh, right.
I look how many years later, and I mean, I used to sing it in our church, and my church is up the road from here. It used to be up the road.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting here. You know, you really are considered one of the fathers of this modern worship movement. And, you know, you famously wrote that song, that, man, I think everybody sang it. I heard it in languages that I couldn't speak, you know, all hell.
Oh, my.
Man, you know, and I go, what kind of man that God would just pour a revelation into and cause that revelation to just touch the whole world.
Yeah.
Dave, just, you know, what moved you to write that song?
Well,
what was the story?
I'll tell you the story, because it's a kind of interesting one. I was going down to Wales, long journey from London, and I had a mate with me, and he said to me, this was in the days of cassette, I've got a cassette of the meeting last week that you were playing at. Do you mind if we listen to it now? You will know, same as me. That's the last thing you want to hear on a long journey, because you hear all the mistakes. You hear all the embellishments that are wrong. Yeah, please don't.
My flat there.
But it was a long journey.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, put it on. In the midst of the worship, where we're singing, you know, fairly well-known worship songs, suddenly I launch into, "Oh, hail the Lamb enthroned on high."
Wow.
And I said, that's interesting. Can I have that cassette when we get back? So I got the cassette and I listened to it, and I thought, there's something worth developing. So I developed the song, but I couldn't get to the last line. I mean, sometimes it's the simple ones that are hardest to write, and you get to that last line, and I could not. And I was sharing a room with Graham Kendrick. We were in Holland. And I very nearly said to him, Graham, do you want to sort of co-write this with me? But actually, I avoided that. I'm so grateful I did, actually. It helped fund some certain areas of my ministry for later years. And but then when I even wrote the song, and you will know this again, often you don't know which ones are going to lift off, or which I wasn't going to put it on my album. Yeah. But a friend said, "You've got to put it on, Dave. You've got to put it on." And I did that, and then started singing it around the place. And again, it took a life of its own, you know.
Well, one of the things that I just got from that, and this is really important, you know, that our program's, you know, called VOX Collective, releasing the prophetic sound, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the most amazing things is that song was birthed in a prophetic moment.
Absolutely.
Because you say the words jumped out at you.
Yeah.
And so much of creativity is like that.
Yeah.
You know, that in a moment that God breathes and you go, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you have to do the hard work of developing.
Yeah.
You know, Dave, you know, one of the things is that song's been around for many, many years, but you are still writing songs.
Yeah.
And I heard this word being bandied about, troubadour.
Yeah.
Now, it always gives me this thing like, you know, the musketeers kind of like, you know, picture the musketeer, well, maybe a musketeer for God. Explain what a troubadour is.
Well, yeah, it's a phrase. I mean, I like it. It means a travelling musician.
Absolutely.
But in the Middle Ages, what happened is the troubadours, particularly around Normandy and around France, and when Britain was joined up with that, they would travel around, and because people weren't literate, they would sing the news, the good news. So they would tell the story in song. And it was a powerful role. In fact, they would often have a high place of high prestige in the courts, and it's kind of something that's carried on. And I love that phrase, troubadour, because I think you're telling good news. You're bringing a release. You're bringing something of the smile of God into.
It's so powerful, because if anyone knows the history of the UK, and each ward had a castle in it or a house, and it was the musicians that carried the stories and the messages of what was happening in the other places that united the kingdom, alongside the court jester as well, you know. But what I thought...
sometimes I could be that as well.
No, you're not. Definitely not. But I think that's so profound that this word actually tells the story of you, and you're carrying the message of Jesus. Dave, what's on your heart in this season?
Well, you know, we're in this pandemic situation, aren't we? And it's been going on and on and on, and no one really knows the way out. We're in what they would call, you could say, a liminal space.
Wow, yeah.
We've come out of something and we're coming into something, but we don't know what the new thing is. And actually, my big thing at the moment is, let's not just assume go back to things as they were as normal, because things are going to change, and we need to be open as church, as believers, to that change. But also coupled with that is a sense of fatigue, a sense of discouragement, a sense of loneliness and alienation. Isn't it amazing that the enemy wants to attack these things, relationships, which are so much a part of our who we are, and the very thing, singing, which is so much a part of who we are in humanity. And so I see my role as awakening people to fresh hope, fresh meaning, fresh reason, awakening people to see that they're part of a plan and a purpose, and this new dawning, this new horizon, which I believe that we're coming into, great opportunity for us, not a time to be discouraged, but a time to be enlivened in the truth that the horizon is endless as we move into.
And one of the things about, you know, you're talking, it's like you're talking, it's like I'm talking. But one of the things, you know, I've been saying this statement a lot, you know, people see the fruit, but they haven't checked the root. And the bark tells the story. So when you sing these songs, they're not just about, well, this sounds nice, but you're living it. Is there something that you can tell us about that's something that stained you and changed you forever in your life somewhere that you were?
Well, I think it was somebody called Barry Maguire, who was sort of part of the Jesus movement as a musician. I got to know him quite well, and he said something very wise to me once. He said, when I first started out, I was singing songs that I believed to be true. He said, now, further down the track, he said, I know these songs to be true, you know, and it's always stayed with me. I think for me, you know, I go through seasons. I go through seasons of emotions where there's blessing and richness and fullness. But there's also dry times where what's happening? And I know, you know, some while back I went through this time of, hey, it's great what I do. I love what I do. You know, I go and visit the churches and I sing my songs and leave people blessed and happy. But surely there should be more. Surely there should be more. And that question resounded round our house, you know, for many, many, many months. And it's almost like when a prophetic word comes, there's a season. It's a cascade of prophetic words, they come, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
And there I was in this meeting, and actually over a week I had 2 or 3 confirming words, really, which said, you know, it's time to go to the nations and to the world, to go out to the world. And those 2 words really stirred in me big time. You know, I sort of you're comfortable in your own zone, but then those moments where that confirming word, it sends you out. So it started really a journey for me to go out towards the nations in many, many situations, poor places where they can't afford a band, but we would take a band. We would take the PA. We would, you know, live recklessly.
Yeah.
And also, we talked about going into the pubs, going to the theatres.
Yeah.
And putting on an evening which was designed more to people who are outside of the church, taking worship to the world. Because when we worship, we tap into something of a spiritual dimension that transcends, goes beyond just people's intellect and mind and touches the heart.
Wow.
And it's the heart. Music is such a powerful vehicle to touch the heart that opens us up. And so, you know, those 2 experiences, that experience of those prophetic words that cascaded in at a certain time, of course, then you've got to respond and do something, really set me on a new course and direction to be the troubadour that you've described that I am.
And what I really love is that both, you know, I have to bring Pat and your whole, the Bilbrough family, all of you, you know, your son is like amazing, you know, and he's played for me in a few things. The whole family just, you know, what does family kind of really mean to you, Dave? You know, I mean, I know it means a lot, but sharing your words, you know.
Powerful. I mean, you know, actually the Jewish faith really has a strong emphasis, sometimes more than the Christians, you know, on family, on building one another up and seeing the next generation develop. And it's been a great privilege to me. Of course, I've got a very supportive wife, but my 2 sons, to take them with me from a young age, you know, being in the recording studio, plugging things in, seeing them play. And of course now, it's my job. I'm the guy with the anorak at the back when they're doing their gigs. I'm the one that, who is this guy standing there?
I love it.
But,
I love it.
Support them.
I love it. You know, the Bilbrough are an incredible worship dynasty. and I know I use words like that, and the words are real because, Dave, you've affirmed me as a worship leader.
You did a beautiful
coming up,
job.
you've blessed me with words of encouragement, Pat. We worked on the National Day of Prayer and all these things, and
Good
the children's
days.
choir. And, you know, one more question. What would you say to your younger self?
To my younger self, I would say, trust God. Trust God. There's inevitably seasons of fruitfulness and seasons where everything goes dry and stale. But to keep on the course of trusting and believing the words that he's spoken to you, to be faithful in the small things. You look after the depth and God will give you the breadth. And just keep focused, just keep moving forward and trusting. Listen to other people, listen to their input. You know, friends, they draw out the best of you. Being with good friends. You know. Oh, Hail the Lamb, we talked about that. I mean, I would have just put that to one side, but somebody said, hey, there's something there, Dave. Use it.
We're thankful that you did that.
Yeah.
You know, Dave, your songwriting, I mean, there's so many other songs. You've got so many albums and stuff. And I would say to people listening to the program, please check out Dave Bilbrough. Check him out. Go online. You know, you probably can catch him doing a live worship thing he's been doing. I've been following it. But you can also catch his music on Spotify and all the digital platforms. But you heard his heart today, and you heard where the deep place that these things are coming from. And Dave, you know, this song, To the One.
To the One.
Man.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
just tell us, why did you write it?
Well, worship is about surrender, isn't it? Ultimately, it's about surrendering. But it's not in a passive way. It's not just giving up.
Yeah.
It's actually surrendering and imbibing and embracing something of God's presence in our lives. It's surrendering, letting go, but it's taking hold of as well. And with this song, you know, it's a little bit different. I like to be a bit of a musical magpie.
Yeah.
Try different styles. I've done the rock thing. I've done the choral thing. This song is, I used a traditional brass band with me to give a different flavour. And I think that's the great thing about worship. It's got so many different flavours, and yet the heart remains the same. And it's to the one. At the end of the day, it's Christ that we worship. At the end of the day, it's at the altar of sacrifice that we lay ourselves.
Absolutely, Dave.
Of surrender, of surrendering, but embracing the one who is life himself.
Yeah, and one of the things I recognise, you know, Dave, that this journey has not been easy. It's one of faith, and this is what the surrendering is about. Surrendering to the call of God in your life, and you really have epitomised that. Whether the stage has been big or it's been small, or we've been in a pub, you know, upstairs in a pub where you're impacting people, and most certainly the anointing of God is on your life. And I continue to pray that that anointing continues to flow, that you're writing more songs that challenges all the generations and the world, you know. But Dave, I just want to thank you for joining me. And, you know, now it's time for us to listen to that song, To the One.